This is season 4, and I am on a mission to help creatives become the most loved versions of themselves. I want to help you step into health in every single area of your life and pursue the authentic creative expression that you feel called to and that only you can. The world feels crazy right now, and we need healthy creatives more than ever. So let's get into it. I'm Courtney Lancaster, and this is the Heal Create podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Heal Create podcast. Hello, friends. Or if you're new here, welcome for the first time. My name is Courtney, and I am a trauma-informed life coach for artists and creatives. And I've been doing that for the last few years. And as I've been working with creatives over the last few years, what I have found and felt really passionate about, honestly, is helping them identify the areas of their life that need healing and strengthening in order for them to move towards the dreams and the things that they are here to create. A lot of creatives, I think, struggle with, a lot of different things that are unique to the sort of highly sensitive artist type, which actually turns out to be quite a few of us, honestly. But when I started this school year, I, over the summer, thought a lot about how to best support you guys, how to best help. And I realized, or I don't even know how it became so clear so fast to me over the summer. When I was thinking about how to serve, I want to help artists, and I've always wanted to help artists create sustainably, emotionally sustainable, physically sustainable creativity. And so when I went into the school year, I wanted to spend each month of this school year educating and supporting the different areas of the life of the artist. So that looks like, I started in September with having a vision for your life. If you haven't listened to any of those podcast episodes or you're not following me online, that would definitely be worth taking a listen, because understanding who you are or who you are here to be and who you want to become is incredibly essential for then figuring out what needs to be healed that's in the way, so to speak, of that vision that you have for yourself. So then I have October. We're in October right now. And I knew the first real thing that I wanted to educate people on was the nervous system, being the foundation for the health that you're able to embody and create from. We also are going to be talking about emotional health and parts work in November, and then healthy spirituality, relationships, brain retraining, money, because every creative bet you didn't know that you're also an entrepreneur. No one told you that when you decided to step into your creative flow, right? And I'm really excited. I think I've really enjoyed the interactions already so far. And so today, that brings me to the very first podcast, the first day of us really getting into the nervous system. If you've listened to me for a long time, you have heard me talk about this a lot, even give the actual basics. And we're going to do it again. We're going to start from the beginning. And what I really believe and have experienced about the nervous system is I have never, ever heard the nervous system walked through by an expert in a way that didn't lead me to a new realization. And I really mean that. It's uniquely so. The concept of your nervous system, because every single behavior and every single thought and every experience that you have of your life is filtered through your nervous system. There's no end to how mind-blowing the concept honestly is. And so we're going to start at the beginning. So scrub your brain. If you know a little bit about it, if you know a lot about it, let's all become students. Let's all have, a beginner's mind. And we're going to start from the very beginning. Okay. So I want to start with a story. I was reading a book called Own Yourself by Kelly Brogan, Dr. Kelly Brogan, back in 2018. And basically, she is a doctor that helps people get off of psych meds. At the time, I was really, really struggling with depression and anxiety so bad. I was basically in my bed as often as possible. and struggling with anxiety when I wasn't. Major anxiety, panic attacks, like the whole thing. And this book was really, really fascinating to read her take on what mental illness actually is. And she had a chapter in the beginning that kind of laid this foundation for how she walks people out of using psych meds. And again, I'm not a doctor. Do whatever you need to do. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with being on psych meds, but this is just what she helps people do. And she has a chapter called "Fear is the Sickness." And basically what she presented was a lot of the science and a lot of her findings around how safety is really the foundation for mental wellness, like feeling safe in your body. And fear is the cause of, well, she would say, and this is an extreme opinion that I'm really fascinated with, but this would be her opinion. Fear is the basis of every disease. Dis-ease would be coming from fear in the body. So I remember reading that, and there've been a lot of moments like this in my journey, but that was one where I remember closing the book and realizing I have to figure out how to resolve this fear. I was trying in so many ways to resolve my anxiety and all of the chronic health symptoms that came with it. That was just a huge, huge, huge part of my life. I was trying so hard. I went to a bunch of different doctors, holistic doctors, regular doctors, took a ton of different tests. I was just always trying to read and trying to figure out everything. I had an idea that there was a lot of trauma still, even though I had been to therapy for a while. I knew that I still had a lot of trauma to work through. I could feel it, but I thought I wasn't approaching it in the way that I know now would have helped me sustainably. And that was really understanding that the system that is scanning for danger at all times needs to be reshaped. Technically, it needs to be healed. It needs to be worked with. And that would be my nervous system. So I didn't totally know what this meant for me at the time, but I knew that I needed to figure out what this nervous system thing was. And that was what she said in all of her studies and all of her years. And this is just one book. There are so many people that agree with her. I'm just talking about the moment of realization that I had while reading this book. She said, the most important, number one thing that she realized is the most important thing that she can offer her clients is teaching them how to regulate their own nervous system, how to bring safety to their body. That's what regulation means. So we are going to get into it. Healing, there is a lot of mindset, there is a lot of processing trauma, but if your body's still living in survival, you will find yourself stuck in so many patterns that are keeping you from the life that you're here to live and from the big creative dreams that you actually have. Okay. By the end of this episode, I hope that you'll understand why your emotions and your reactions really do make so much sense, what the autonomic ladder is, and how to begin to take some steps towards supporting yourself and healing your nervous system. So the autonomic ladder, let's start with that. The autonomic ladder is a resource created by Deb Dana. Now, if there are nervous system experts listening right now, or if you're thinking this is going to be just a complete comprehensive, I don't think that's what I'm going to title this episode. I think it's going to be 101. I'm not trying to make you a professor of the nervous system. I'm not trying to make you the expert all around, because there's a lot of nuances, and because science is just continuing to clarify and add in really beautiful ways, proving over and over again the truth of the system that we have, but it also is adding a lot to it. It's actually very exciting if you are a nervous system nerd like me, but for now, this is just going to be the basics. So the reason why I start with the autonomic ladder is because it's just a really simple visual. We offered the resource of the autonomic ladder in my newsletter. If you get my newsletter, you can sign up on my website at courtneylancaster.co. And or the link in my bio on Instagram. But we'll also put it in the show notes, so it'll take you right to the autonomic ladder. Deb Dana is one of the matriarchs of nervous system science, and she partnered with Stephen Porges, who is the creator of this of polyvagal theory, it's called, to simplify what happens in our nervous system when we are technically when we're triggered. So the place to start is realizing we all have in the back of our brainstem something called neuroception. And your neuroception is the part of your brain that is constantly scanning your environment for safety or for danger. Your body is designed first and foremost to keep you safe. That is how God designed your body. That's how you were created. Your body is designed to keep you safe. And it's the most powerful force in your entire system, is the force that is trying to keep you alive. So when you are even unaware, most of the time we're unaware until we begin to become aware, your body is constantly scanning the environment. And the way that it knows what's safe or dangerous is based on everything that you've been through up to this point, which is huge. Very few of us had perfectly attuned parents who had already done their emotional work, that were present with us in every single emotion, walked with us through every hard thing, showed us we could do hard things, came out of our childhood with so much connection, a deep embodied sense of safety and protection, knowing how deeply resilient we were. And even if you did, you still would have a nervous system that was trying to protect you, because also what's happening in this world is technology is moving faster than your body even knows what to do with. And that can even look like a threat, even if you had a perfect childhood. So it's okay. All of this is healable and manageable. Don't worry. But when your brain collects every single memory, it's like a computer. It holds everything, except it doesn't dump old programming. And every single thing you've ever been through is living in your brain and body. And so for a very, very simple example, let's say you were bullied as a kid, and you were in a group of your peers in third grade, and they all started making fun of you, and you were so embarrassed and ashamed and scared. Well, what could happen is that you go into your office work party and you all of a sudden start to feel massive social anxiety, and you have no idea why. Well, what could be happening is that your brain is like, wait a second, a group of peers. What does this remind me of? This reminds me of being in third grade. Oh my gosh, I have to fill this human body with as much energy as I can to run away from the system, run away from these people, or to fight these people off. Same thing it would do if an actual like predator, like a lion, was walking towards you. Except that you are not technically in danger in a group of your peers, not usually. And so you don't need all that fight or flight energy. So what happens when you get triggered, that's a trigger, your body kind of goes back in time, thinks that what's happening now is something that happened to you in the past that was really painful. It's going to enact on your behalf. It's going to go into a mode of self-protection. This is so important to really get. I mean, just even for the idea that like there is no such thing as self-sabotage. It's all self-protection. Your body makes perfect sense based on what it thinks is happening, even if you are not clued in to what it thinks is happening. We usually aren't at first. If you look at your autonomic ladder, you'll see there are 3 states. You'll see that the top of the ladder is called the ventral state. This is your true authentic self. When your nervous system is all clear, you're good to go. You feel totally regulated. You feel connected. Maybe it's the best day ever. Starts at a 10 on the autonomic ladder that we gave you. Starts at a 10. That could be your wedding day. It could be the day you graduated. It could be like a day you spent with a friend that was just like the most fun day ever. Your nervous system wasn't sensing anything dangerous in that moment. So technically, the most joyful that you ever feel is actually the safest that you feel. And when your body starts to get triggered, so your neuroception is constantly scanning, it notices something that could be a potential threat to your sense of safety, to your survival, to your well-being. Well, the first place it will go is your sympathetic state. Your sympathetic state is your fight or flight state. It is the state where anxiety lives. It doesn't have anything to do with sympathy. It's the scientific term for when your nervous system notices threat and fills you with energy to run away from the threat or to fight off the threat. When you're in this state, Your thoughts are going to be really, really fast. You're going to have a ton of different problems that you're trying to solve. You might have intrusive thoughts. You might be ruminating about something. You might be in an argument with someone in your head. You might be worrying about something in the future. You might be thinking about something that already happened. You might be blaming somebody. You're basically, it's like your thoughts are constantly, constantly going all the time in this state. Um, the lowest rung on the autonomic ladder is called your dorsal vagal complex. This is your state of shutdown or immobility. Now, when we're looking at the autonomic ladder, if we go back to the sympathetic state, you'll see that instead of going from 10 to 1, like the ventral state, it starts from 1 to 10. Because that's kind of how it feels, right? Like when you are a little bit triggered, when you notice something's off, you usually don't go straight to a panic attack. You start with a little bit of like irritation or nervousness. You're like, what's going on there? And then the more either the size of the trigger or like the more you're triggered, you will go deeper or down your ladder, so to speak. And that's when we get into like panic attacks and rage. And then you might flip into your dorsal complex. And your dorsal complex is where depression is. It's where your body is like, oh, the threat is too much for me. I just need to shut this person down. And this can happen in like all kinds of ways. So we start at a 1, which is technically like just a sort of like you check out, like apathy. Or you're just kind of like buzzy, you're not really paying attention, not really inspired, kind of blah. And then it goes all the way down to despair, depression, deep, deep sense of disconnection, maybe even like derealization or depersonalization. That's what I experienced when I was deeply depressed. Like a sense that the world wasn't real or that I wasn't real in it. Like I was kind of watching myself live my life. And I just want you to know, if that is you, man, that was the scariest season of my life. It was just the absolute. There were a lot of scary seasons of my life, to be honest, but that one was really, really scary. And that was me at the bottom of my ladder. And it's very healable. That's not something that I struggle with now. Isn't that amazing? Everything is healable. Maybe you need a deep breath. It's okay. It's going to be okay, guys. I promise. I really do. And if my story is any encouragement to you, it really is healable. So if you are in your dorsal complex, you are going to notice that your thoughts are really slow. They might be hopeless. They might be like, what's the point? I'll do it tomorrow. Who cares? Whatever. That's different from rest. Rest is a sense that you are deeply safe, like you feel very safe to relax. And you also have a little bit of dorsal. So that would be a blended state. Dorsal would be like you're shut down, but rest would be like you're shut down, but you feel a little bit, you feel very connected to safety. Like if you have a good night's sleep, that's a blended state. And blended states we might get into, but you don't need to worry about that now. What I really want you to focus on is these 3 different states because, first of all, one of my favorite mentors, Ruby, talks about how the problem that she has with the autonomic ladder is that it looks like a hierarchy. It looks like it's better to be ventral than it is to be sympathetic. It's better to be sympathetic than it is to be dorsal. But she always talks about like, I always want to put the autonomic ladder, like tip it over so it's like a piano. And I love that because the truth is your nervous system goes up and down every day. It's like, I mean, gosh, just this morning I was like, it's so much to do for work and for my kids. I just noticed myself like totally spacing out, like just a little bit of dorsal for a second. I was like, oh, got to do some things to regulate, and which we'll talk about. But there's no state that's better than another state. It's all a part of the human experience. It's all normal. It's all what your body is doing exactly what it needs to do to keep you safe. And you need to know that compassion for whatever state you're in is the first step always towards healing. Compassion for yourself, kindness towards yourself, and curiosity towards the stories that come from the state that you're in, that is what is going to help you come up and out over time of some of these stuck feelings that you have. The job of the thoughts that you have, I just posted an Instagram reel today about how your state creates your story. I learned that from one of my own practitioners, Sarah Baldwin. She's just a nervous system expert. I would just go totally bend her stuff if I were you. But she talked about how your state creates your story. I also actually think that's like a Tony Robbins quote. It's in the self-help zeitgeist. It's like definitely something that you may have heard. What that means and why the autonomic ladder is so fascinating is because depending on where you're at on your autonomic ladder, what state your body is in, you could be three different people. And within those three different versions of you, you could be a myriad of moods within those versions of you. So like each version of you is like its own totally complete different planet. These just totally different personalities that you have. And you can feel three different ways, or you can feel millions of different ways about the same thing. And that is what makes it really hard to know what is true when you are really struggling. And so your state creates your story means that the way that you narrate your life, the way that you talk to yourself, the way that you make sense of your life and you make meaning of the world around you and the experiences around you has to do with how safe or in danger you feel like you are. And this has a very biological purpose. It's the stories that come from each of your states are trying to actually keep you in your state. The sympathetic, fight or flight, and then the dorsal, the shutdown state, both are the strongest, most convincing stories that you can have. And the reason for that is because if your body actually thinks there's a survival to your threat, it's not going to let you just choose to be grateful. It's not going to say, you know what? Let's just take a minute here, you guys. There's a lion like circling you. It's not going to offer you the thought like, I'm just so grateful for my life right now. Or this is what I grew up with. We're just going to praise God. We're just going to worship him and we're just going to praise him. That would be overriding your biology, which a lot of us do. I did. I was actually a worship leader who led other people to do that. But the problem with that is that your biology will always win. And what I would notice is that when I was done being grateful or done leading worship, done singing the praises of God, my panic and self-doubt and fear and anxiety would come back even stronger because I ignored the messages coming from my body in order to do what I thought I was supposed to do. So, bless her heart, like we're all doing our best. But once you understand that like your body is trying to keep you in that state, sending you those thoughts, it gets way easier to use them as clues. Use those thoughts and those stories as clues to what state you're in, as opposed to taking them at face value. That will change your life, truly. So if you are noticing, that you maybe wake up one morning and you're like stressing out about your day and you're yelling at your kids and you start noticing like, my partner never does anything right, or like, or this is probably the most common, like the world is just falling apart right now, or everything is just terrible and what's going to happen to us. And you notice that like, if you follow those thoughts down, you will find yourself staying in a place of anxiety, staying in fight or flight. You will find yourself really being stuck, feeling really, really stuck. And even when you like sort of try and move on, it'll always kind of float back up to the surface. All of the fears, all of the fears in you that are waiting to be comforted. Honestly, I said today also online in that reel, your nervous system, it is technically there to keep you alive, but the truth is that most of us in the Western world, we are actually safe. It's something like 95% of what you actually are afraid of never happens. So 95% of what you are afraid of never actually happens. That's the way I want to say that. And what that means is that if your state creates your story, what we're actually dealing with is our bodies feel really afraid. They feel really afraid because for a lot of us, we are healing a lot of things that our ancestors or the generations before us never knew how to even face. And this is a really good thing. We know the best potential for like staying connected online is we're all learning that everyone's kind of in it together. We're all learning new things and we're all spurring each other on. The hard thing about that is it's a lot. It's a lot for your body to process. And it can feel like an overwhelm to your system, that can feel like a threat to your well-being, which can trigger self-protection. And part of that's just part of the process, and it's okay. We're going to get to regulation. But the other thing is that technology and our access to news is moving so fast, and it's just so available. And that is really confusing to the human body, to the system. I mean, you think about even like 100 years ago, we only knew what was happening like mostly in our small town. We only knew like, we didn't know all of the different news from all of the different communities all around the world. And we know, and we know now, there was so much suffering, but we weren't scrolling through it in 10-second sound bites on our phone all day long. We mostly didn't know. And so the onslaught of information is really confusing to your body, and therefore can activate your self-protection big time, and add to what feels like the evidence for why you should be scared. But it's not true. It's not true. And I deeply believe in like the safety that you are allowed to feel as a well-loved child of God, being your birthright and being your absolute identity and a place to return to. I think even if I didn't believe that, which I absolutely do, you can kind of understand that for a lot of us, for a lot of you probably listening, you are in situations that might be difficult, but are mostly figure outable. And you probably have access to either resources or the information and the ability to move towards those resources. It might not feel like it, but for most of you listening, you do have access to that. And there is so much more safety than we could ever quantify. One of my favorite books is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, talking about being in a concentration camp and realizing that he could choose his own meaning, and he could choose to stay connected to surrender and trust and make meaning about his life and his purpose. And as he taught other people how to do that, he was able to stay regulated and be such a source of encouragement for the people around him. And as he survived and told that story and talked about it, he really proved that like the amount of choice that you have and how you live in the world and how you navigate hard things is so huge, so massive. And when I, connect that to my own belief in God and my own belief in our identity as well of children of God, I'm like, well, you can't lose here. You either win or you learn. So that makes understanding your nervous system very essential, because it's like, oh my gosh, everything I'm thinking and feeling is coming from my nervous system. But it also, I think, brings a lot of relief and patience and compassion to the process, because it's not an easy process to heal. And you probably at this point won't go anywhere for healing that won't invite you to include nervous system literacy. And understanding your nervous system doesn't make it easier. Well, I mean, maybe I would say isn't the complete healing that you need. It's the beginning of the healing. So a couple of just things that I want to say. If you're looking at the autonomic ladder, there's two. You might have heard of like the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is your brain and your spinal cord. That's the like command center for your body. The peripheral nervous system is all of the nerves coming from the base of your neck that go all throughout your body. So this is really fascinating. The nervous system is a real system of a collection of like actual nerves connecting every system in your body, wrapping around your digestion, your muscles, your heart rate, your connected to your immune system. Like by the way, feel free to at me if you'd like to correct me on any facts that you have. I have a lot of research and education in this, but I'm not an expert and I do not claim to be. So you can totally let's refresh anything I need to really know. And we'll also remember that there's a lot of nuance and a lot of new information too about this. So remember, these are just the basics. But what we're talking about is the peripheral nervous system. The autonomic nervous system lives here, and it's the part that runs automatically, connecting all of these different systems. So one of the reasons why we notice so many like chronic symptoms when we are in constant states of self-protection is because it takes a lot of energy to be in self-protection. When you are in anxiety, fight or flight of any kind, or you are in a constant state of shutdown, maybe even just a constant state of like high functioning stress or nervousness, stress is still is your body saying that it's perceiving a threat to your well-being and survival. Isn't that crazy when you're thinking about like, I got to get this, whatever, this work thing done. You're like, that's probably not going to be a life or death situation, but your body thinks it is if you're living in that kind of stress. Chronic symptoms come from a body that doesn't have energy flowing freely through it because the energy is being used to keep you in an active, poised state of fight or flight or shutdown. Shutdown, ironically, takes more energy to be in than fight or flight. If you think about being depressed, how tired you are, it's trying to conserve all of your energy to survive like what it thinks is the most overwhelming threat. So I'm not going to go into a ton about that, but I do want you to know I realized in my own journey that while I was looking for all of the answers for my own health, I started hearing stories about people who had, especially when I was brain retraining, which we'll get to in January, when I started hearing stories about people who had resolved their chronic symptoms because they had regulated their nervous system, I knew deep inside of me that was my priority. Not that we can't support our bodies with supplements or nutrition or medicine if necessary, but I knew that was my highest priority in my healing, was learning how to regulate my nervous system. And what happens when you regulate your nervous system is you relax all of those nerves going from the base of your neck through all of your systems so that energy and blood can flow freely and you can live in increasing degrees of health. So when we're talking about the ladder, the autonomic ladder, we are talking about recognizing where you're at on your ladder, or just kind of being familiar with the idea that like you could be in one of three states. So if you have that as a resource, if you keep that close at hand, you can either put a note in your phone or you can just visit it daily and be like, where am I on my ladder? Most of the time when I'm working with clients, they'll be like, I am here all the time. They'll like point to like a, 8 on the ventral, or they'll be in the high functioning shutdown. They'll be like, I'm here mostly all the time. Great. Good to know. And there's no right or wrong answer here. There's no state that's better than the other state. We just want to help you experience more life and more health, right? Over time. But even if not, connecting and showing yourself compassion in the state that you're at that is good enough. And that will make such a huge difference over time. So once we notice where we're at on our ladder, that's when we want to think about, how can I send a cue of safety to my body right now to help myself go a little bit up my ladder, to go a little bit closer to ventral. When your body feels safe, you can do your best work. You can create, you can connect to your family. You can unlock access to the gifts that you have. You can recognize and access that connection, that presence of that felt sense of the presence of God. And the most spiritual, creative, relational work you can do is helping your nervous system feel safe enough to stay open. But the journey for a lot of people is going to look like knowing where they're at most of the time and starting with helping themselves feel a little bit safer. So when we're talking about sending cues of safety to your body, there are a lot of different ways that you can do that. The best way to help yourself feel a little bit safer is connection. So connecting with another person, connecting with yourself, connecting with God, having a conversation getting support with a practitioner, if necessary, or a therapist or a coach or a group, even a church. That's a really good way to send cues of safety to your body. That's called co-regulation. But even connecting to yourself, so like putting both hands on your arms and really like showing yourself, hey, I'm here. Your body doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And before you get discouraged about, well, what are you saying? So then the only thing I have to offer is just alone, being by myself, comforting myself. Well, you, my dear friend, are a well-loved child of God. You've got that spirit of God inside of you. So you're never alone. And all we're doing is we are showing ourselves that we are not alone. Another thing that you can do, if you find yourself in fight or flight, some of the regulation practices that you're going to want to do are getting that energy out of your body, because the fight or flight energy that it's sending you when you're in anxiety, it needs to be used. And a lot of the problems that people have with anxiety is they are trying to like ignore it or wait for it to pass. And your body's basically like, well, they're not listening to me. So I just need to like amp this anxiety up. So the way that you can quote unquote listen to your body and get some of that energy out is muscle contraction. The amount of squats that I've done when I've been anxious, or wall presses. So all my clients know, push, pull, squeeze. Even pushing your hands together as hard as you can. Squeezing, like lifting your shoulders and squeezing your hands really hard, doing push-ups, planks. Planks are especially effective. That was a tip from Ruby Rose, around the kinds of things that you can do when you're in ventral. I mean, when you're in a sympathetic state. And going for a walk, I think, is probably been one of the number one most healing physical things that I've ever done. A walk in the sun, especially. I know we're heading into winter, but even a walk on a cloudy day is still really, really helpful. Basically moving your body. We want to move your body when you are in this state of anxiety, because we want to show yourself, okay, I see that you are definitely putting me on defense right now. Like, how can I help you? How can we help you? Just kind of use that energy, body. If you find yourself in a dorsal state, what we want to do is we want to imagine that we've come up to an animal that's like playing dead. No sudden movements, or like a sleeping baby. Your body is basically, it's shut down. It's using a ton of energy to make you look like you're not mobile. And what's fascinating about this is that predators don't like dead prey. So one of the reasons why your body shuts down is because it thinks, oh, there must be a predator nearby, because that's why I feel all this fear. So I'm going to shut this person down because predators don't like dead prey. So that's like so fascinating, right? But what we want to do is we want to be like, oh, I've noticed I'm like super depressed today, or I woke up super heavy. The draw towards like sinking in bed and zoning out is so strong. The pull is so strong, but we know that that isn't something that is actually going to help. That's not something, as good as it feels in the moment. What actually happens is you're basically agreeing with your system. There is a predator nearby. You're right, which perpetuates that feeling of stuckness. So it's really difficult at first. And I know this because I was in very deep depression. But what you're going to want to do is like wake your body up. This is when we want to bring in some, as opposed to like muscle contractions and like fast walking, we want to do tapping. We want to do some tapping. We want to kind of like, quote unquote, wake the body up. So like if you're tapping, and I have both hands on my arms right now, and we're just like one at a time tapping each arm. I look like I'm crossing my arms, and it's called a butterfly tap. So you can Google this too. We're just gently going to tap each arm back and forth, back and forth. That's bilateral stimulation, which gently sends a message to your body that it's okay to come back into regulation. You might want to do some rocking or swaying. This is something I do with my clients a lot too. where you can put your hand on your chest, hand on your stomach, or a hand on your face. It's a very, very beautiful way to connect with yourself. And you're going to go back and forth, and you are going to just rock and send like you would a baby. You can even pat your chest while you're doing that. Walking is also really good if you can just sort of do a slower, gentle pace of walking if you're noticing that you're in a lot of shutdown. But anything you can do to just show your body we're in the moment and we are actually okay will be a cue of safety for that dorsal vagal state. Okay, so again, the autonomic ladder. It's just showing you the 3 states. Remember, you are 3 different people in those 3 states. And so knowing where you're at on your ladder will help you not take your thoughts so seriously when they feel so real. I'm going to have Sarah Baldwin next week on the podcast, and she talks about how they are so reasonable, which I love because it's so true. Your thoughts are trying to talk you into staying stuck, but not because they don't love you, because they love you the most, because they really know that that's going to be the thing that convinces you to stay safe, to stay stuck, to stay small. And so many of the creatives and the artists that I work with, your very work, the thing that's actually in front of you right now, is trying to, your dreams of writing the book, being an actor, going on stage, writing the album, all of the things that you're here to do are most likely a cue of threat to your body because they are asking for more visibility. And prey that is more visible, not that you are prey, but your nervous system doesn't quite know that yet, can feel like a threat. So we have to, every step of the way, teach ourselves, I am okay. I really am okay. And I really am safe. When you can recognize where you're at, that's when we can do something about it. And the thing about regulation is that you're sometimes not going to notice the difference in the moment. It's not always going to be and then I did some somatic exercises and now I'm good. What we're talking about is we talk about regulating your nervous system in the same way that we might talk about getting healthy and losing weight. It's not a quick fix. It's not like this thing where you're going to do regulating exercises for a week, have compassion on yourself for a week, be curious about your thoughts for a week, and then you're going to be good to go. Actually, a lot of times what can happen, especially if you're shut down, is if you look at that ladder, if you're shut down, but you're trying to move towards ventral, what are you going to have to go through to get through ventral? You're going to go through your sympathetic state. So you might notice some anxiety. And that is usually when people are oh my gosh, it's not working. And any somatic practitioner will be no, it is. It's totally working. And you're safe to feel that anxiety. And it's okay. It's a neutral experience if you can be compassionate on it. And it will resolve itself the more that you can work with your body. So I have a couple of resources for you. The NeuroFit app, I need to see if they'll sponsor me, honestly, because I tell every single client to use it and I have used it myself. And it's just this brilliant app where you can tell it what state you're in and then it will give you 6 or 7 different exercises to regulate your nervous system based on what state you're in to help you move up the ladder. And they're just great little 1-minute exercises. The other resource is a resource that I created for you, and it's called Knowing Your Nervous System. So I'm so excited because we have been creating this, and I know that it's going to help you so much. I wish that I had this resource. This is going to be 3 I'm big on meditations, visualizations, and I walk every single one of my clients through custom meditations, custom visualizations for their wherever they're at. And with this resource, for each of the 3 states, your ventral state of connection, your sympathetic state of fight or flight, and then your dorsal state, I'm going to walk you through a very safe, very, very safe and connected meditation that is going to help you figure out the thoughts, the emotions, and the physical symptoms that you uniquely have when you are triggered in each of those three states. Ventral wouldn't necessarily be a trigger, but it's very essential to know who you are when you're not triggered, because then you can compare it to who you are when you are triggered. So does that make sense? This will be a guide, a downloadable PDF, and there will be space for you to write down what you learn in each of the visualizations. And we're going to get really clear on who are you? What happens to your body and your brain when you're in shutdown? Who are you? What happens to your brain and your body when you are in sympathetic? What thoughts do you have? What stories are on repeat? What physical symptoms do you have? And then really grounding into, okay, wait, and now finally, who am I when I'm in my ventral state? And what am I here to create? What are my preferences here? Like, what do I feel like in my body when I'm open and when I feel alive? And who is that version of me? And then we're going to put it all together in this PDF, and there's going to be a blank autonomic ladder for you to fill in who you are in each state. This is essential to know, because when you know who you are in each state, you can know how to support yourself. So keep an eye out for that. I will announce that on Instagram in the next few days at Courtney Land. Yes, at Courtney Land. And we'll make that available for you guys to get. That is the nervous system 101. The last thing I want to leave you with is that top rung of the ladder, your ventral self. Again, there is no state that's better than any other state, but I want you to know that that state is who you authentically are. Calm, curious, compassionate. These are the 8 C's of the self from Richard Schwartz. Calm, curious, compassionate, caring, creative. You're also inspired. You're joyful. You can laugh with your friends. You have an idea of what the next step is for you. You feel alive. That version of you deserves to be here too. And the good news is she's always there. He's always there, even if you are triggered in self-protective states. But I want to help you increase your time in that space as much as possible, as much as you can. So take a moment when this podcast is over and think about the last time that you felt truly, truly safe, alive, and connected. Could have been a long time ago. That's okay. Could have been when you were a kid. Could have been last week. Could be today. But take some time and think about, who is that version of me? Just get curious. Let yourself marinate in that for a little bit. I love you guys. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, Courtney at CourtneyandHeart.com, or you can find me on Instagram, or you can just tag along on this podcast journey we're on. I love supporting you here. Hope you have the best day, and I'll see you soon.